What's up, y'all? Happy Monday night. Good to see you. Good to see you. Got quite a few people in here already. Nick Sweeney, greeted you earlier. Good to see you. Space Cowboy, what's up, man? Short Stories by Kate. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Arizona Boy, what's up, man? Let's see. Pet Detectives Adventures, talking about Night Ambush tonight. We sure are. We sure are. I'm going to let people give them a chance to line up at the door and pile in and all that good stuff. And I can adjust my camera angle there. Cool. All right. So this is going to be a good one tonight. It's another one from the book Indian Depredations in Texas, and it's a must-read if you haven't read it already, or if you don't have a copy yourself. So I'm going to put the link to get it in the chat right now while people are filing in. Does anybody own this book already? I'm thinking some of you do, but it's full of really good stories. We've covered a couple stories from Indian settlers and early settlers and Indian fighters of Southwest Texas. That's a long title. That's why I have to go look over there and read it. But similar in vein to that, where there's short stories. It's maybe, if it's 5 pages, that's a long story in this book. So a great read if you just want to pick up a book for 5-10 minutes and learn a little something real quick. You're the goat, says Bogota. Thanks, man. You're the goat, bro. Bogota. Let's see. Hail chat and HOKC Elite Super Grunt. What's up, bro? Good to see you. Happy Cappy. Hi, y'all. Good to see you, man. Glad you made it. We're waiting on all the regulars to pile in here. Not gratuitous. Really had to take a sip. These are coming in, and I believe next week. So those will be up for sale. Let's see here. Making sure I'm not missing anybody so far, but yeah, I'm pinned that purchase to the book link to purchase, top of the chat there. If you don't have it, couldn't recommend it enough. Or if you know somebody in your life who likes this type of history, great Christmas gift. We're getting the brain to mouth connection warmed up here, but highly recommend it because it doesn't take a lot of effort. You can just pick 1 or 2 stories and have your mind blown real quick. Good evening, all, says Louisiana Gray. Good to have you. Good to have it. Evan, good to see you. And we got quite a few regulars piling in here. Cool. So let's preface the story just a little bit before we jump into it. We're going to be talking about a survey party in the year, oh, geez, I thought I wrote that down, 1840. So that's pretty early in Texas history, not super long after the Texas Revolution. And survey parties are very likely the most dangerous job you can have on the Texas frontier at this time. Texas had won the Texas Revolution and got all of Texas. And that's like, awesome. That's great. We won the war. We got the land. But now you have to figure out what's in the land, what's on the land, and how to divvy that up. So figuring out the geography, the topography, and deciding who, at least ostensibly, owns what. Low effort reading. Love it, says Short Stories by Kate. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's another one of those that's written in a pretty common vernacular, or pretty accessible vernacular for us today. Like sometimes the Victorian style of writing is a little tedious for us. And there's a little bit of that in this one. We'll go over some of the phrases that are used in this story, but it's not indecipherable. You just got to think about it for just a second. And you're like, okay, I get what they're saying. And you can skirt right along in the story. Because some books, there's a lot of great books that are on this subject out there, but some of them have, a chapter is like 20 pages. So it's a little bit of an investment to get through it. But this one, early settlers and Indian depredations, can't recommend them highly enough. So this one, we're going to be talking about a survey party in the 1840s who are out on the Texas frontier, and an experienced guy with them warns them that there's a premonition of a Comanche attack. They shrug him off, and it's a bad deal for them from there out. But there's a lot of spooky little details in this that I thought made it really interesting. And it's another one of those where it's hard to get 15-20 minutes out of this one, but I think it'll make a very interesting live stream. So we don't have an episode on this one, where this will be a great way to tell it. The loggers back then had it pretty rough too. Oh yeah, absolutely. Can't even cut down a tree without worrying about being scalped. True. And that's kind of that's a similar vein to the surveyors. The tribes, the Comanche, especially in Texas, knew who the survey parties were and what they were doing and what their job was. And they're essentially there to parse up the Comanches' homeland, right? So they're not real happy about that. They would be particularly brutal to survey parties, and a lot of rangers got their start as part of a survey party, or kind of did side gigs working security for survey parties. Jack Hayes, most notably, got his start as a surveyor. I believe Bigfoot Wallace did some survey work. There's quite a few. There's a lot of overlap because the job is pretty similar. You're going out on the frontier, you're surveying in this case, but you're really having to keep watch for Comanche raiding parties or Comanche war parties the entire time. And any engagement is going to be incredibly violent, incredibly dangerous. And so you're going to be operating in very, very dangerous conditions, way far away from anything resembling a town or a city. So very, very similar job description. And that's why there's a ton of overlap. There's a very high casualty rate in tonight's story. Let's see, what else do we have? We have rattlesnakes. We have kind of like a running man situation, like a run for life, a race for life. What else we got? Oh, yeah, obviously a nighttime ambush, not super common with the Comanche, but in these particular conditions, it's like a perfect storm for them to launch a nighttime attack. And these guys should have listened to the warning. It's oh man, 2020 hindsight, but when I read it, I was like, guys, come on, come on. All right, we'll give it another 2 or 3 minutes and we'll jump into the actual story. Bama Deanna, good to see you. I just emailed you with Arizona Boys contact info. Space Cowboy, good to see you. We saw you earlier, Space Cowboy. Low effort reading, definitely, definitely. Yeah, let me know. I might as well run a poll real quick. I'm gonna ask, have you read? I'm just gonna call it Indian Depredations in Texas. I have a feeling a lot of you have, but I think this will be a great story nonetheless. And it's one of so many, you may not remember it. So, oh yeah, I don't have the physical copy, but if you do, this story should be on page 336. Title is Massacre of Sparks Surveying Party and Victory of Major Howard. And we're really going to focus on the Sparks Survey Party part of that. Give it another 2 minutes. Once we hit 10 minutes, we'll dive into it. It seems like people want me to give them a little bit of time to come on in here. Either that, or people want me to start way sooner, but we'll try and find a nice little middle ground. Yeah, this is, I think, indicative of how dangerous this job was. People hear survey party and they kind of go, oh, well, I guess, but no, this is super dangerous. This is also, for better or for worse, right? Whatever side you stand on in the conflict between the United States or the Texas government and the local tribes, it's a necessary thing. Like, this is something that's going to have to be done when you acquire any new land. So, it's kind of one of those boring chores that turns into an adventure or adventure might not be the word for tonight's story, a tragedy, I guess. But it's necessary. There's no way to get around it. Somebody's got to do it. And tonight, these guys did it, or they tried to. Short Stories by Kate says, still finding our desks. I get it. I was fashionably late for classes, I would say. Happy Cappy says, I set my alarm. All right, good. Did everybody get notifications? Hopefully everybody's getting a notification when we're going live. And you should get one 30 minutes beforehand. But everybody come on in. No need to take your seats. In this class, you're more than welcome to bring your own beverage, bring your own snacks, whatever you want. It was an adventure at first that quickly turns into a nightmare. Yeah, pretty much. And when we get to this point here in the story, I was just rereading it right now and trying to mentally calculate the casualty rate. But when we get there, you guys can check my math. Maybe I'll recalculate it by that point. Okay, well, let's jump into it. What do you guys say? So we are in Central Texas. We are in a 40-man survey party. this guy, I'm gonna have a hard time getting this guy's name by the terms of service, but we're gonna do it. We're just gonna read his name. Under the command of Mr. Dick Sparks. Hmm, okay, that's the actual name. That's the name. We're moving on. So this 40-man party is out surveying this territory in Central Texas. Um, they are out working during the day. They even find a honey tree, and that's a big thing. Like you find honey, it's like it changes your whole dining experience. So some of the guys are cutting down this honey tree, getting to the honey, and the other guys are out surveying. And then all of a sudden, from the north, heading south, heading like due south, a small buffalo herd, which would be like a couple dozen buffalo, just comes stampeding through where they're working, and like enough to cause a ruckus. And everybody's like, what is that? And then all the wildlife just goes quiet, like everything. Usually you'd hear some birds chirping, or you know what I mean? If you've ever been out in nature, you kind of hear stuff going on around you. So this buffalo herd goes straight through their position, disappears to the south. Like they're just on a full-on tear, full-on stampede. Then everything goes quiet, and this old teamster who's with the like a wagon driver who's with the crew. He's not a surveyor himself, but he's like a driver. He helps with the wagons and all that. His name is great name, Good Eye Roberts. That's what he's listed as, Good Eye Roberts. So he's got an eye patch named Good Eye Roberts. He tells them in this kind of, I see this as kind of a Mad Max scene where it's like this guy given an ominous prophecy. He tells them, listen, the Comanche are here. Like they were out hunting the buffalo somewhere near here, and they drove that little contingent of buffalo off, and they're here somewhere because that's why everything's going quiet. He tells them, I'm creeped out. We need to pack up and get out of here because he's been in this situation before. And a lot of the guys that are part of the survey party are younger guys, let's say early 20s, maybe even late teens to man, maybe early 30s, maybe like Mr. Sparks here. But that's, they're pretty young guys, pretty generally inexperienced in dealing with the Comanche and frontier warfare. So they're not listening to Good Eye Roberts. And Sparks even says, like, dude, you're being kind of a wuss. Like, everything's fine. If the Comanche were chasing that buffalo herd, they would have appeared right behind it. Like, we got nothing to worry about. The buffalo herd was hours ago. We have nothing to worry about. Let's just keep working, right? We have to get this done. They basically don't want to go home with their tail tucked between their legs and say, well, we didn't get this job done. That's going to cost them a lot of money. So there's, pragmatic business reasons behind wanting to stay, but Good Eye just keeps carrying on. And he's like, no, we need to get out of here. But eventually he's completely overridden. Um, and they say, too bad. We're going to stop here. We're going to make camp so we can keep working here tomorrow. And everybody else just kind of forgets about it. And they settle down and they have this fancy meal. Like everyone's been working all day and they're really excited to have the honey. So he describes it as this like beef steaks, flour bread, he calls it. We'll go into this, guys. There's we'll get into it, but we have a firsthand account of this. It's described as flour bread and what else? Honey. Like they were really fired up to be able to have something to put the honey on. So everyone's really excited. Everyone eats really good. They're just kind of like relaxing and having a good time. It gets to be dusk and everybody starts kind of rolling out their bedrolls and everything. And pretty quickly it's dark and everybody goes to bed. And it's supposed to be a couple hours after that. Everyone is woken up by Comanche war cries. And the first thing that happens is a big shower of arrows just hits the camp everywhere, just hitting everyone, just screams going up. It's like an artillery launch or an artillery attack. What's the name for that? I digress, whatever the actual name for that is. But the Comanche, it's dark. So the Comanche are doing a preemptive artillery attack of sorts and pouring arrows into the encampment, take out as many guys as they can, and then they rush in like a full bum rush and just start vicious hand-to-hand combat. It's not even really combat. It's pretty much just a massacre. Can you say that? It's a vicious scene. There's 40 guys, and out of 40, 2 of them make it away. Like just because there are only so many Comanche, everyone is just getting waylaid all around them. However, it's a horror movie scene. Like however vicious and graphic and um, gory you think it is, you could probably times that by two. Like it is just I almost can't oversell it. But in this melee, two guys, one named Robert Wire or Wires. But look, I see Wire more in the text, so I'm going to go with Wire. And a man named only as Kellogg. We don't have a first name, which seems to be a relatively common name in early Texas. Elizabeth Kellogg was taken at Parker's Fort, be a couple years before this, like 2 years before this. So I'm not sure of the genealogy in the Kellogg's in early Texas, but it seems um, rather abundant, I guess we could say. But two guys make it out real quick. Two guys that would go into 20 times, right? So what's that mean? A 95%, a 5% survival rate. Is that right? And a 90% mortality rate. Yeah, something like that, right? I'm not crazy. It's something like that. Um, it's insane. That's just like a full on massacre. They get Dick Sparks, they take him out. Dick Sparks is no more. Good Eye Roberts, they take Good Eye Roberts out, and 36 more guys. They're all just left there. And when Wire and Kellogg finally run off, they're able to hide for the night, but they can't see to really run anywhere. So they wait for daylight. They're hiding in the brush while the Comanche are kind of just like hanging out and taking war trophies, and they're pretty psyched on what they've just done. So it's this kind of celebration in the camp while they harvest their war trophies. But then they know that two of them have run off. So they're also waiting for daylight to go track these guys down. It comes to daylight, and then we're in a full on like survival race situation. They see Kellogg and Wire in the brush, and Kellogg and Wire start running. They're going for a couple miles, and it's like a full on sprint, and Wire starts getting a side cramp. He said he's been sick for the last couple days. He's already had a flu or a cold or something like that. So just this run already is really starting to take it out of him, and he starts getting this vicious side cramp. He says it's a pain in his side, but we can, I think, safely surmise that in the middle of this hard 2-3 mile run, it's a side cramp like you've probably had before. And so he tells Kellogg that, okay, I'm cramping up. I've been sick. I'm not going to be able to keep up with you. He doesn't say, leave me for unalive, right? He doesn't say like, I'm for sure a goner, but he says, go, I can't keep up with you. So Kellogg starts going. He gets maybe a couple hundred yards ahead, but they're still running. And the Comanche, there's 5 or 6 of them, the younger Braves. This is mostly like a harvesting, a trophy harvesting for them at this point. They want to get these last 2 scalps. They're chasing them from a couple hundred yards behind, and both Wire and Kellogg go over this ridge that's leading into this dry river bottom and into the bottom. And Kellogg's kind of just going, and he's so far ahead that he doesn't really see Wire, and Wire knows that he can't catch up with him. So instead of trying to and getting caught out in the open, he ducks, he goes to the ledge of the river, and there's this overhang. Trying to illustrate it. Well, it's just I don't know. Yeah. My old man texted me to wipe my mouth. So thanks a lot, chat, for letting me carry on. I do check it before I start, but then I take a sip of this delicious coffee from this mug, and don't blame the mug though. The mug is perfectly fine. It's my own user malfunction. Um, but yeah, he sees an overhang it's a big boulder, and it has this like hollow spot underneath the rock. It's real small, but big enough that he can slide in there. So he's like, all right, this is my last chance. He slides underneath the rock, and he says, I didn't think about this while I was reading it until the next line. He says, rattlesnakes, he assumed that rattlesnakes were underneath the rock too, and they would attempt to deny him his rights, which is a clever way to put it, meaning, they were going to drive him out of the hole. And so he's sitting there way under the hole. Like he slides back as far as he can get, 5-6 feet back there. And he's just waiting to hear a rattle behind him and waiting to hear footsteps above him. He hears no rattles, lucky for him, but he eventually hears the Comanche coming, and they just run right past him. Like they jump down the rock, and you can see them jumping down the rock. You can see it through the hole underneath the rock or the ledge. Oh, does that make sense? And then they run off across the riverbank and they disappear. They're chasing what they think is two guys. They're gone for quite a while, but Rice, or excuse me, Wire doesn't get out from underneath the rock. He's like, I know they're coming back, and he thinks that they're going to catch Kellogg, but they come back and they're super winded, super tired, and they don't have any scalps. So he's thinking like, okay, maybe they didn't catch him. But then they start looking all around the riverbank. They think, oh well, we know the other guy is here somewhere. So they're poking around everywhere for like an hour, and they're really angry. They're really mad at this point that they haven't caught anybody, and they're going to be embarrassed when they go back to camp. So they're very intent on finding him. And he says that they get within a ramrod's distance of him, which would be about a yard somewhere in there. So the way he's describing it, he's in this hole and they are up above him at the very entrance of the hole. And so within about a yard, and they just by happenstance don't check underneath that rock. And eventually, after about an hour, they go back to their camp, back on their way. And he waits another while, let's say a couple hours in this little hole because he's just convinced that they're coming back, which is probably a good move. But he waits and they don't come back, and it's almost dark, and he takes off again, and he makes a run for a couple hours. He takes off and heads back through the brush. I'm trying to find the exact town. That's one thing I didn't write down in my notes. He goes, sorry guys, I took good notes for this, but I forgot to write down the town of all things. The nearest settlement is, well, they come upon a settler's, they come upon a road and they both meet at a settler's house, and they both know this guy, and I forgot to write down his name too. Um, but they both know him, and they didn't really know that he was living there. His name's Hallmark. And so it's kind of like there's uh, uh, Kellogg gets there first. They get to this, he gets to this settler's house, and everybody, they all three of these guys were friends. But he gets to the Hallmark's house, who's the settler, and he lives on the road that leads from Red River to San Antonio. And it doesn't really say at which point along that road, but still in the vicinity of Central Texas. Uh, Kellogg gets there first, kind of tells Hallmark what happens, but he thinks they all think that Wire is a goner. And then just a couple hours later, because it's the same, there's only one kind of trail to get to Hallmark's house. Uh, Wire appears and tells them what's happened. Eventually, they kind of convalesce there because they're all exhausted and freaked out, and they finally go to San Antonio, report the incident, and I believe it's about a month later before a contingent military, I believe military, yeah, military and Rangers make their way from San Antonio back to Central Texas, up in the central part of the hill country where the massacre occurred, and have to round up all the bodies and bury them. And you can imagine like what a horrific scene that would be. Not a fun job. And it's really Wire's personal firsthand account that we have. And that's just kind of where it ends. And like these stories are so interesting because there's no mention of trauma. There's no mention of like their psychological ramifications for it. It's just kind of told as this is what happened. And then it's very matter of factual. And you do wonder how that impacted them because it certainly had to. It just isn't mentioned in the recollections of it. But the story in itself is not terribly uncommon. The casualty rate is absurd. But I thought that was what really got me about that is the fear of the rattlesnakes underneath the rock. Because it's one of those things, if he hadn't mentioned that while giving his account, I never would have thought about that. And it's just such a creepy, scary nightmare situation to be caught in. And they said also during the night, they can hear all the trophy harvesting going on. So it's not just the looting of they loot everything that they could for understandable reasons. There's lots of valuable things there. So any ammunition, weapons, clothing, food, anytime there was iron, like wagon wheel hoops or barrel hoops or anything they could get like that, the Comanche I'm talking about, they would take it because it's necessary for building their arrows. They loved iron tipped arrows. There's an account of them coming in for a meeting, I believe in San Antonio, but maybe Houston, in the early 1830s. And all the local citizens are both like disappointed with the Comanche being not the James Fenimore Cooper of their imaginations natives, or they're not tall and uh, necessarily evocative of the notions that they had of plains native tribes. They're rather squat, rather muscular, rather stocky, and they rode unshod ponies that would be undesirable by most Texan standards. And they rolled into town, this tribe that was just wreaking havoc on all of Texas, and started like going through the trash and picking up iron hoops, old pans, anything. So people were just like, what's going on here? What is with these people? But it's because iron was so valuable to them. But yeah, I just thought there's no other conclusion to Wire's story beyond that, beyond his particular uh, what's the word I'm looking for, ordeal there. But I just thought, man, that is such a creepy situation. Oh yeah, my point was they had to sit in the bushes and listen to them. Also, in every account, I don't know how graphic I can get here. In every account of someone witnessing or suffering a de-scalping, there is a sickening, like a really loud, if you can imagine that. So they have to listen to that 38 times in addition to other horrific things. So make sure I don't have another message from my dad here. All right, cool. No, we're good. So it's just a nightmare night for both. And they have to listen to all this uh, while keeping in mind that this war party who's carrying out these things is going to be chasing them in the morning. And they really can't go anywhere because there's brush and dry branches and stuff everywhere. So any noise you make, the Comanche are going to hear. So really their only option was to hunker down till daylight where they could at least see where they're going and make a run for it. Both of them survived. So pretty bad dudes. But I just thought, man, I'm going to check my math in the chat here. Maybe somebody's corrected me, but I think that's a 95% KIA rate, which is crazy. That is almost unheard of. But that is the summation of tonight's story. I thought particularly horrific, but unfortunately brief. So a good story for the night stream. Let's see, Terry R with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Good morning, coffee. Good evening, coffee mouth. Thank you. Appreciate it. Like I said, it's not the mug. It's me. I think I got it. Guys, I don't know. I checked before I get on stream, but there's only so much you can do, you know. Let's see here. I didn't understand the question. How effing drunk am I? Pretty drunk, I'd say. A surrender monkey, if you're on the UK level of drunk, then that's a whole nother level. Oh, we got a lot of chats here. I'm gonna go through these. Let's see. Yeah, any questions you have about the story? Any questions you have about the reading, the source I got? Any questions you have about this morning's episode? Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, anything else you want to hit me with? Hit me with it. Let's see. When management tells you not to worry. Oh, good point, Space Cowboy. When management tells you not to worry and your gut is telling you something different, exactly, you should probably worry. But Good Eye Roberts was in a tough situation because he argued to leave. But what's he going to do? Go leave by himself? He knows a lone man out there on the frontier is he's a goner. He's a total goner. So he was pretty much forced to stay there, and that had to be terrifying. And to know he's pretty sure the end is coming, and then the end comes. Though I thought it was like, well, he wasn't freaked out enough not to fall asleep. Just saying, you know what I mean? The account doesn't mention anything about Roberts not being able to sleep. But I get it. When you're tired, you're tired. Let's see. When a bacon tree lures you into a ham bush. I'm not a ham bush. Okay, I get it. A lot of people who passed away on. That's a rough one for me to read, Space Cowboy. They'll flag me on those numbers. But yes, that is true. That is true. Bamadiana, they were ambushed. Let's see. We can't see it, I reckon. Bamadiana, is there something? Am I forgetting to show y'all something? Did the Lakota and Comanche have an alliance? Correct me if I'm wrong. The Cheyenne and the Comanche did. I'm not aware of a Lakota Comanche alliance nor an enmity. I just that they're too far away from each other. They're way up north, and the Comanche are way down south. But I would be open to being corrected about that. Just not that I know of. Can't fake a scalp. No, you can't. You can't. I've been in less scary chases, and the horse always won. I'm not a fan of privileged A's on horseback. Well, it depends on what kind of yeah, privileged A's, I guess none of us are fans of. But just because you're on horseback doesn't mean you're a privileged A, I would say. There was never any alliance between the Lakota and okay, yeah, Bama. That's as far as I know, that's correct. Comanche moon, yeah, it looks like a Comanche moon outside. I think we talked about this last night, but I think technically to be a Comanche moon, it has to be a full moon, but practically, like, is this moon bright enough to carry out raids like the one we just talked about? Yeah, absolutely. Comanche and Kiowa held a pretty strong alliance in possibly Southern Cheyenne, if I'm not mistaken. That's my understanding too, Bama 8900. And there was a little bit of enmity between the Kiowa and the Comanche that eventually formed into a strong alliance, but not doesn't sound like that much. The Comanche and the Cheyenne had some pretty wild battles for a little bit, but they ironed it out. Seems like the 1860s, I believe, just because it was like, listen, we can't be fighting amongst each other if we're going to have any chance against the U.S. Army. Did the Comanche take the scalp posthumously, or what would you say of that? Pre-posthumously? Or did they take it posthumously, or did they take it before? Both. We talked about the raid on Ezra Sherman's ranch and how his wife was still alive during that unfortunate process. And she lived for 3 or 4 days, long enough to give her account of it. Very unsettling. I do know that I was just wondering if the I do know that I was just wondering if the Lakota and Comanche had an alliance because I heard it somewhere, but I probably read it wrong. Yeah, just to my knowledge, they did not. But like I said, that doesn't mean that they certainly did not. And I think that's largely geography. I think possibly if they were in closer proximity, they would have worked something out. Say hi to your dad for us. I will. I will. He watches sometimes and checks the checks my coffee mouth. I've seen pictures of people that were de-scalped and survived. Yeah, yeah. There's a couple, and they are frightening. But I bet, like, if you met a guy that had that, you'd buy him a beer, right? You'd be like, "Tell me about this, buddy." Everyone was unalived in the fight. Nobody T-worded, says Troy. No one that I heard was had a prolonged end. It seemed like a pretty quick raid. Do you recall the nearest town to the ambush? Let me check and see if they listed it. I didn't see it. I didn't think. It keeps saying, "Oh, the road to San Antonio." And like they lived along the road. They were traveling along the road to San Antonio. And it's like, well, that could be a lot of places in. Oh, that's right. Okay. And honestly, I just forgot. I can't believe forgot to put this in my notes. Saint Augustine. I have to look up where that's at. St. Augustine, Texas. It is. Let's take a look here. Is that right? I don't think that's the current town though, because that's way up by Nacogdoches. Yeah, I was trying to find. I looked that up earlier too, and I was thinking, well, that's up by Nacogdoches. So I don't know if it's a different area, because you wouldn't go if you're not familiar with um, Texas geography. Nacogdoches and San Antonio are one of the only two big towns at that time, but they are way far away from each other. So I don't, to my understanding, that's hard for me to get a mental map of. I know it's somewhere in central Texas, but that doesn't narrow it down a ton. Yeah, it does say it's saying they left from St. Augustine County, but yeah, I had trouble sussing out exactly where. Bamadiana says, hello, Brandon's dad. I don't know if he's still watching, but if he is, he'll get a kick out of that. The Introverted Hermit Company. I'm going to work in my garage tonight while I listen to you talk about the Wild West. Thanks for keeping this introvert company. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, Space Cowboy. Hopefully you get a lot done. Who do you think the Comanche hated the most, the Tonkawa or the Apache? I would say the Tonkawa because of the human consumption. Bama says that probably the Apache. Could be right. Could be right. They eventually struck a truce with the Apache. To my knowledge, there's been no truce with the Tonkawa. Did the time change? I thought it started at 9 p.m. Eastern, says Marcus Aurelius. We were doing 9 p.m. Eastern, but I took a vote last week to see what would be the best time for everybody, and everybody said 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's when we release episodes too. So I'm trying to keep everything on a rather uh, coherent or continuous or predictable schedule. So everything we do, we'll try to get it out 8 p.m. Eastern. So everybody knows 8 p.m. Eastern, there's going to be something we're putting out. Let's see. Pretty bitter enemies of the Comanche as well. Own tribe. What do you mean by that? Bama 8900. Own tribe. Pretty bitter enemies of the Comanche as well. I'm not sure what you mean. Let's see. Tonkawa tied with Karankawa. I don't know a ton about their history. I think there was a little bit of conflict between them as well. The Karankawa are closer to the Texas coast, the Gulf of America or Mexico, however you want to phrase it. And Tonkawa are really their traditional lands are kind of here. We're in Austin and the Central Hill Country, really, and then a little bit to the southeast. But didn't the Comanche run the Apache out of Texas? Yeah, they ran the Apache out. They ran the Tonkawa out of the Hill Country. They pretty much took over. They were more diplomatic than I think people will give them credit for, but no, they still ran people out of town. And clearly, from tonight's story, they weren't that diplomatic. I have the hairline of someone who has been unscalped. I haven't shaved or cut my hair since October 24. This is as long as my hair has been in almost 30 years. Sometimes you got to grow it out, man. I used to have really long hair down to past here. You just got to let it go every once in a while, you know? The loggers back then. Okay, got that. Let's see. Oh wow, 91% of you haven't read Indian Depredations in Texas. I pinned the link to purchase up at the top of the chat. And again, it's another great one if you just know somebody who's interested in Old West history. A great book where they can just kind of pick through and pick out different chapters. It's 99 cents on Kindle and $14 on paperback. So affordable is a relative term, but it's not crazy expensive. Can't recommend it highly enough. Great one. You should do Aztec history. Just a suggestion. Yeah, I've got some Aztec history in the what's the word for it? Pipeline, I guess. In the hopper. Yeah, I'll make a note of that. I really like Aztec history. We were talking a little bit about them and the Mayans in this morning's stream, and I've done, I want to say 2 Aztec episodes, but I know one for sure on Cortez making his way into Tenochtitlan and then the unaliving of Montezuma, not the full shebang where the conquistadors have to make their way out of Tenochtitlan. We kind of stopped it there because I want to do a part 2 to that. But it was a good one. It's probably from 2 years ago. Oh, great, Bam Deanna. Thank you. Bam Deanna says it's free on Google Books. And also if you have Scribd or what is the other one? Scribd and I forget the other one. But Scribd has it for free with the subscription as well. Has Terriar, who, been here? He is here somewhere, Nick Sweeney, lurking in the shadows, waiting for you. I know I saw him earlier. Oh, and there's a super chat. So yeah, he's here. Yeah, $2 super chat from Terriar. He's calling me coffee mouth, Nick Sweeney. Go get him. He's throwing flack my way. Now, like I said, I think it's a little you guys all everyone in the chat is kind of letting me flop around out here like a sideshow when I have coffee on the corners of my mouth, but you know, I understand, guys. Entertainment's entertainment. Family heirloom, a really odd looking leather tobacco pouch, we think. Tormid Hagahast 8914. Are you alluding to what I think you're alluding to? Some famous tobacco pouches have been made. Oh, how am I going to say this with TOS? Some American how am I going to say this? Rangers and American soldiers alike have been known to make tobacco pouches out of what might be a male's built-in tobacco pouch. I guess we could say it that way. Does that make sense? A human male's built-in tobacco pouch. It's kind of a crude analogy, but it makes sense. You see what YouTube makes me deal with, guys? We love our overlords. I'm just saying, it makes it tough. Bama, you get the idea. You get the idea. Let's see. Bama Deanna. Okay, I got that. Have you heard of the Empire of the Summer Moon is going? Have you heard that Empire of the Summer Moon is going to be made into a film? That's a sure deal, Bama 8900. That'd be a tough one to make, but that'd be great. I wonder who's going to do it. Taylor Sheridan, maybe? Tonkawa. Okay, got that. I took my kids to the museum and they had a scalp and the kids about lost. Did they really had a scalp? Maybe chill out, museum guys. Just make a replica. Engineer says a yam bag. Yeah, you get it. Oh, wow. Bama 8900 says, yes, Taylor Sheridan is slated to direct the Empire of the Summer Moon movie. Okay. I haven't actually watched a ton of his stuff, but what I have seen, I thought like, yeah, this is pretty good. And even when I heard initial rumblings of the Empire of the Summer Moon movie, I thought, yeah, they'll probably slate Taylor Sheridan to do that. And I think he can do it well. Chewing tobacco, bullock chomps, surrender monkey. I don't know what bullock chomps are. Bullock chomps? That sounds like a good band name, though. Is that going to get me in trouble with YouTube? Let's see here. Scanning through the chat. I'm looking forward to that Empire of the Sun. Is it a movie or is it going to be a series? Because it'd be tough to, put that, coalesce the whole thing into a movie. Let's see. There is a bigger threat as far as. I think I'm caught up here. Yeah, he directed Landman too, and I haven't seen Landman the whole episode, but everything I've seen I thought was pretty impressive. Oh, it is a movie. Okay, cool. I'll go see that. Looking forward to that. But even stories like we told tonight, it's like you could make a whole movie out of just that story if you had a more background or you had more fictional license. I think you could create the characters. But we don't have any background for these guys. Like this is that 2-page story is all they have. So it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't slot itself well into an episode for History at the OK Corral. But if you had more license, you could make a great movie out of that. So how they fit the entirety of Empire of the Summer Moon, the whole scope that starts with it starts with the raid on San Saba on the mission in the 1600s and concludes more or less with the Palo Duro Canyon in the 1870s. So that's a large breadth of time there, but I'll be interested to see on how they do it. I watched your Daniel Boone show. Oh, thank you very much. That's another one I enjoyed putting together. And that's our first foray into really Revolution era frontier history. And I didn't know that much about Daniel Boone before I delved into that. And interesting that his granddaughter, Nancy Boone Cartwright, was taken at the Linville raid when Buffalo Hump had his great vision, his great dream that said, we can, the Comanche chief, we can make a collective tribal raid all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico and drive these Americans out of our territory for good. Nancy Boone Cartwright was living in Linville. I believe her husband was unalived, half the population was driven into the sea. They were having to hide in boats in the bay. Many people were unalived in the shallows of the waters, which is crazy. Like a Comanche attack that stretched to the ocean. They were attacking people as the waves of the Gulf crashed around them, right? But many captives were taken. Nancy Boone Cartwright was taken, and they were hauled all the way up hundreds of miles north to just outside of Lockhart, Texas, and through torturous conditions. We've heard many times here the abuses that captives would suffer. She was found with terrible sunburn and bruises and all these things. Just before the Battle of Plum Creek, it had been clear to the Comanches that they couldn't take all the captives with them because the Rangers were on their trail and they had to get out of here quick. So Nancy Boone Cartwright was tied to a tree and several arrows were drilled into her. And that's how she was found. But a very unfortunate end, and yet another Boone family life um, snuffed out by a native attack. There's a lot of native attacks in that family. Let's see. Do you finally have to admit that Quanah Parker did not know his mother, Cynthia Ann Parker? He did not know his mother, Cynthia Ann Parker, until he was older. I don't know if it sounds like, I mean, he very assuredly knew her. He might not have known her background, but my hunch is that he did. But he most assuredly knew her because he was 12, 13 by the time they were separated. Meanwhile, on this day in history, there was a single vote for the U.S. to not enter World War II. Back when Congress used to vote on such things, fair enough. A single dissenting vote. I didn't know there was a single dissenting vote. I wonder who that was. Let's see. So, did the Native Americans really use bird feathers on arrows, or is that Hollywood? No, that's called fletching. It's absolutely real. If you try to shoot an arrow without the fletching, it won't fly true. It'll go all over the place. That's there for a purpose. It's not just decorative. They did make different warriors would have different feathers or fletchings or paint, like different designs they'd paint on their arrows so that they could retrieve them later. So because they would go back and collect all the arrows that they could, because making arrows was a labor intensive process. So even we talked about the Battle of Crowheart Butte this morning and how young kind of teenage apprentice warriors, we could say, from both tribes were sent onto the battlefield at night, in the dead of night, when no fighting could take place, to retrieve friendly casualties or retrieve friendly KIA so that they wouldn't be posthumously butchered, I guess. I'm trying to find genteel words for this, but they wouldn't be posthumously assaulted by the enemy tribe, and to retrieve as many arrows as they could because they were super valuable and people didn't have time to make more arrows. And you obviously could run out of arrows. So going back and extracting as many arrows as you could was a very important thing they did as often as they could. Bama Deanna, he didn't, well, no, he didn't know. Yeah, I mean, he didn't know her name was Cynthia Ann Parker. He knew her as Nopta. Yeah. Nagda, I haven't seen. I've seen Nautda, but I mean, Anglo recordings of it do spell it all different kinds of ways. He found out, yeah. I mean, but are you? He did know her. I mean, I don't know. My hunch is that he found out he knew before, but either way, he did know her. Let's see, but yeah, he may have found out later. I'm open to being wrong on this stuff. Have you done Washington history like Chief Leahy? Yeah, and I did. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Artimo Moreno. Someone's corrected me on Chief. How do you say that? Leahy? Because I think I said it wrong in the episode. The Pacific Northwest has some tough ones to pronounce, but we did the Battle of Seattle probably 2 or 3 months ago, and that was a really good one. And Chief Leahy, I don't want to say the name too many times, mispronouncing it, but yeah, real injustice done to him where he was executed after the battle. Fascinating story, because it was like a conglomeration of tribes that attacked Seattle because they had kept having broken treaties. That's a big point of contention, understandably. In the movies, they always waste their arrows and abandon them, and then the cowboys can't wait to fill their boots with water. I don't. The boot thing might be real. I've seen people use their hat. Boots, I don't know. I haven't seen anybody do that. But yeah, it's in real life, the any tribe would go back if they were able to and try to extract any arrow or retrieve any arrows that they could, because it's just you're going to have to spend a lot of time on each arrow. Let's see. He probably heard it was her when the soldiers came. That was big news. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I know you're talking about Quana and Cynthia Ann, or so you're talking post Palo Duro. Yeah, and you know what? I need to go back and re-examine the accounts of that. My only sure thing to contribute there is that he knew Cynthia Ann was his mother. Absolutely. He would have known her as Nagda or Nagda, as we see there. But I mean, he was 13 or so when they were separated at is that Peasy River? Gosh, there's so many battles we've done that kind of blend together. Um, but yeah, he would have known that was his mother. He carried the picture around with him for the rest of his life. But I will go re-examine whether or not he knew his mother's lineage. My inkling is that he knew his mother was a captive who was adopted. There wouldn't have been a huge stigma on that. That wouldn't have been terribly uncommon, especially with his dad being a chief. That would have kind of solidified his place in the social rank. But I'm going to go re-examine that because you know your stuff, Bamadiana. Did you know the UK, they would only use one side of a feather for a fight? I enjoy the people through history invented things that are the same without aliens visiting. Yeah, that's. I was gonna say you're from the UK, so all of your archers use the same method. Let's see, for making their arrows, fletching. And that's true. I find that interesting too, and not in a suspicious way. It's just fascinating that cultures from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, all develop the same kind of tools, be it the atlatl or the bow and arrow. They're different iterations of these tools, but they did develop pretty much the same tools worldwide. Let's see. Cynthia Ann was with the Quahati band, correct? Yes, I don't. I think she later ended up with the Quahati band. My hunch is that it was Nakoni or Penateca. There was actually a conglomeration of Caddos, Comanches, I believe Waco and Kiowa, and maybe one more tribe in there that had attacked Parker's Fort. It wasn't just Comanches. They had kind of assembled an A team of sorts, let's say. Yes, I know the Comanche. I'm referring. Oh, maybe I. Oh, Happy Cat. Okay, yeah, yeah. I see where the confusion was. Eli Parker, who was a native, helped write the surrender documents after Lee surrendered to Grant. I didn't know that. Okay, cool. We need to watch Apocalypto for movie night. I'm totally down for that, Space Cowboy. Fantastic movie. We have to do Comancheros next because that's Terry R's movie night. But we could do a great movie night on Apocalypto. Absolutely. And they did it all in native languages. It's just Gibson did an amazing job with that. Let's see. And rendered them. I'm not Artemio. I think I lost your last comment here. Let's see. Have you done Washington? Okay, I got that. Can you tell me, Artemio, how I'm supposed to say sheaf? Is it Leshai? Leshy? I said it wrong in the episode and I got eaten alive for that. Justifiably so, but it's hard to pronounce all the names in the Northwest. Quana knew he was he was mixed race. After his mom got captured and his dad was unalived, he had to fight to rise up. Now, and that's my understanding of it, is that people knew that he was mixed race, and so after his father had passed, he had a tough time with that. He was given a lot of grief for that, and he had to start over in a new band. Him and his brother Peanuts. Let's see. I love that movie, says Space Cowboy. I do too. Yeah, way up there on my list. Tonight is 1941. Xmas movies start today. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, any other questions on tonight's story? Like I said, if you have any questions on the book, let's see. Any questions on Crowheart Butte, on upcoming episodes? Looks like we'll have the next one out Wednesday. It should be Wednesday, at least for members, it'll be out Wednesday. And then, let's see. That'll be a Comanches episode. Then we have a Rangers episode. Oh, I can't believe I'm blanking on the next one. And then I've got a couple episodes coming that are just like special extra episodes. I'll try to put them out. I think I'm going to put them out closer to Christmas, but I hear a lot of people saying that they use this show for sleep, which I think is a backhanded compliment. But I'm going to take several episodes and we'll put them together in different themes. But we'll have like a fire, like really low fire sound in the background, and just a blank screen, so you can sleep to it if you desire. Just a little extra thing. Because I hear all kinds of people asking me for a sleep episode. Let's see. Anything on the Shasta tribe, says Terry R. I don't yet, and I really need to have something on the Shasta tribe. I mentioned them briefly in Kit Carson and the Klamath Lake massacre, because they had a little bit of contact with the Shasta as they made their way from Sacramento. Sacramento area. Carson and Fremont and their party made their way north through Northern California and then into the Klamath Lake area. And they had some sparse contact with the Shasta, but the Shasta are a crazy tribe. And there's lots of, well, I mean that in the most endearing way. I mean, the Shasta are an amazing tribe, a fascinating tribe. And there's lots of crazy lore up there. Lots of spooky stuff that happens up there. So it's a nice little segue into our supernatural stuff we like to talk about. I mean, yeah, we'll have to talk about that on the live stream, granted, but we like to talk about the supernatural part on the live stream, right? Right. And we haven't talked supernatural stuff for a while, so we'll figure out a way to squeeze that in soon enough. Let's see. Quana sure didn't look mixed race. I agreed with that, and like, not that I care, right? But S.C. Gwynn mentions in his book that he has a very straight European nose, I guess, not like this, but straight. He has very Anglo features in a lot of ways, and if he didn't have a deep tan and a shorter haircut, it would be, you could see a lot more you'd see a lot more resemblance. Let's see. 1941 is absolutely a Christmas movie and an action film and a World War II film. Is 1941, what is that? What is 1941 on again? It's relatively recent that's come out, right? The Shasta tribe were fierce, says Terry R. They were. They you know what? I'm a little ashamed of myself. They should have had an episode already, but you know, things take time. So yeah, we'll do one. I'm from, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours south of there. And I tried to climb Mount Shasta with a group of guys in the running club back home and my dad. And I was 15 and I got altitude sickness and I fell. Like, we were going to have to go back to the parking lot eventually. We got most of the way up there, spent the night, and I got altitude sickness. And I thought, oh, okay, we're going to have to go back and call it a day here. And I slipped and I slid down that mountain for, I don't know, quarter mile, a long ways. It was a more expeditious route to get down there, but I thought I was a goner. Let's see. The Shasta tribe connected to the supernatural lore of Mount Shasta. Yeah, oh yeah, there's lots of crazy reports from down there. Up there. Let's see. 1941. Okay, got that. This is what I've been waiting for. Artemio Moreno corrects me and says it's pronounced Lesh I. Okay, cool. I was gonna go for that, but I needed a little reminding. Terrible with he really got um, the short end of the stick. He really just got a raw deal, to say the least, after the Battle of Seattle. Let's see. If you ever do another cryptid related show, I have some pretty interesting stuff to contribute if you do. Oh yeah, we're gonna do anytime we could squeeze it in. In January, I'm planning to start a supernatural cryptid conspiracy channel where we can do live streams that are just related to that, so we don't have to worry about squeezing them into history. If you ever do another, okay, got that. And also, if you have anything you want me to cover in that or on this show, Bama 8900, email me history at the OK Corral at gmail.com, because I check the emails myself. So like I was saying this morning, I get so many interesting emails. I didn't get any emails at all throughout the entire show, and now I get tons of them, all sorts of cool stuff. John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, many, many others. It came out in 1979. What movie is that? Are you familiar with The Man, Dan? Asks Bama Deanna. Absolutely. They had a lot of contact with Lewis and Clark. I should try to find more conflict stories involving them, but they're a pretty much permanent agricultural tribe. They have big Mound houses, really fascinating people, very complex culture. Let's see. They just stole my Harley 45 WL Solo. What does that mean? Somebody stole your Harley? Really? We're talking about a movie with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, but I don't know. I mean, is it the Blues Brothers? Which movie are we talking about here? I'm lost. Okay. Guys, are you talking about the Blues Brothers? Pronounced as Leshy, no matter what they say, says Nick Sweeney. Nick Sweeney, you go take the angry comments from Pacific Northwesterners. They are very particular about how you pronounce stuff, and they make it it's very tough to pronounce. But you gotta say it right, or they get very upset. Understandably so. Texans kind of do the same thing, but they do it with their town names. Like however you think the town is said, they say it completely different. No shame in pronouncing an unknown name wrong. No, no shame. You just, out of respect, you want to get it right. I agree, says I heard it Leshy. Well, is it Leshy or Leshy? I should at least get more slack for the episode then, because I said Leshy. Belushi rides a 45. Oh, Belushi and Dan Aykroyd are in this movie 1941? Never heard of it. I'll check it out. 1941 movie. And guys, we want to talk a conspiracy. What happened to John Belushi, guys? What happened to John Belushi? Bill Murray says he never saw him do anything like that. So oh, soon as I said what happened to John Belushi, I get kicked off the stream. What is up with that, guys? Coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidence. Very interesting. Everybody see me again. Not bad for tonight. As soon as it's 8 o'clock, yeah, I guess that doesn't surprise me. I guess I'm gonna have to work out some kind of Wi-Fi situation because as soon as this building starts jumping on their Wi-Fi, watching, I don't know, what do people watch on Netflix now? C word is a hell of a drug. That's what I've heard. I do not know that, but that's what I've heard. I guess not C word, but it rhymes with Rogaine, kind of. Boy, guys, we're getting into some heavy talk here. Man, I thought that was my internet, says Louisiana Great. No, man, mine's been like it's never given me any issue. And as soon as I start live streaming, it gives me a hassle every once in a while. So I thought we'd figured that out. You can see the router in a different spot behind me, but it's been much, much better. I'll streamline that. Excuse me, get that figured out tonight too. That's one thing you don't want as a live streamer. You triggered it by asking the dude, Louisiana Gray, right? That's what I said when I came back on. I was like, as soon as I asked, hey, what happened to John Belushi? Guys, really, what happened to him? It just goes click right off. Because guys, Bill Murray said, I've never seen John do anything like that. He said, like, I don't buy once he read the official account, he said, no, I don't believe that. Something's up, guys. Have you tried stealing your neighbor's internet and when they get visited by the authorities? No, don't want it. We don't need any of that, man. I got enough problems. I know nothing of either one of the C word or the other word. That's for the best, Bama Deanna. That's for the best. They're not good words, and we can't repeat them here for a reason. If YouTube doesn't allow it, then we shouldn't be saying it. Watch the trailer for 1941 after tonight's stream. Okay, yeah, we'll do. I mean, The Blues Brothers is like a top 5 movie for me, man. My dad showed it to me when I was like 10, and I was just like, who is this guy? And they were like, well, that's John Lee Hooker. I was like, dude, well, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen. I am a grass master, says Bama Deanna. Right on, right on. I get you. Let's see. Have you tried? Okay, got that. I think I'm caught up. Who else believes we're living in the last days in times? I don't know. I hear a lot of people saying that, but I think people have always said that. So we don't know. That's my opinion. Does that apply to us too? Says Troy. What's up, Troy? I don't think I've said what's up to you yet. Does that apply to us too? I'm not sure what you mean. Trying to figure it out here. What do you mean by that, Troy? Does that apply to us too? Let's see. Watch the trailer, got that, and then make some popcorn and watch the entire movie. You are welcome. Cool. All right. Looking forward to that. Can't go wrong with that combination. Does the YouTube speech policy apply to YouTube? No, no, it does not. Bama, be diplomatic and just stay clam. I think you mean calm. Space Cowboy says rugs. It rhymes with rugs suck. Yes, no good. Great stream. I always enjoy non-religious stuff the best. I don't think we do. We don't talk religion on here. I don't think. They call me Mr. Master Mushroom Man, says Nick Sweeney. Well, we call you Mr. Sweeney. That's what we call you. Not Terry R. I don't know. He calls you a lot of stuff. But here, our official name for you is Mr. Sweeney. Grass is not a rug. It is not. It's not a rug. Let's see. Grass is grass. Let's see here. We're going to get into a Nancy Reagan debate in the chat here. I like it. I like it. Nathan Herrera, what's up, man? Good to see you. If you're just getting here, go check out when this is over, go check out the story earlier in the stream. It's a good one. Short one, but a good one. I'm in Eastern Washington, so everything is legal. Not everything, but grass, we could say. It sure is there. Last time I was there was a lot of people using participating, I would say. I always mean, except Terry R, you know who. I understand. He's he seems like what's the word? What do they call John Goodman in Babe Ruth? Incorrigible. If you've ever seen that movie, they call John Goodman in Babe Ruth incorrigible, and it seems to really scar him for life. It's like, bro, it's just a word, you know? I never thought that would be legal. SMH. It's a contentious subject here. So Sween, is it pronounced still Ojai Sibing? I'm sure. And I don't know what we're going with now. There were 3 grass shops where I used to live, says Artemio Moreno. They seem to be everywhere. There's a lot of lawn care enthusiasts. Nancy Reagan said, just say no. Meanwhile, her husband is allowing, Bama Deanna, I like it. The Iran-Contra scandal. I agree with you. I don't know how much of that I can say right here, but if you see Bama Deanna's comment there, I'm gonna go ahead and you know what? I'm gonna pin this real quick. It's my chat. We'll have a good time. It's pinned at the. Oh, I pinned Nick Sweeney's comment. Nick, I'm going for Bama Deanna's comment. There we go. Yeah, Bama Deanna, you got a point there. Nancy Reagan was saying one thing, and her husband was doing the other in L.A. in order to, what was it? Distributing the sea in South America to get money to buy arms for Iran, the Iran-Contra scandal, something like that. It's a convoluted scheme, but it worked. Cubensis, says Nick Sweeney. What? Nick Sweeney, you're trying to drive me crazy tonight. Irascible was the word I was looking for. I would have gone with irascible. Hello, nice to be here. What's up, Armenian Bishop? Good to have you, man. The first part is contentious. The first part of my Iran-Contra description. I'm not an expert. I'm kind of trying to sum it up in layman's terms. Kiki Camarena. Yeah, Kiki Camarena got unalived because he flew over the base where they were training Contra on Cartel Island. I didn't know that. That's why. The Kiki Camarena story is horrific. It's a very we talked a lot about Comanche and native tribe orchard methods, right? And the Kiki Camarena story is unfortunately in that class of horrifying stories. And it happened in what, 80s? It was something like that. 80s, maybe not. No, it's that early 80s, I believe. Let's see. What the hell is this? Some sort of conspiracy kookery cult? Certainly not spelled like that. It's not. You're going to get us on a list, Nick Sweeney. I feel like you're already on a list, Nick Sweeney. So if we are talking about Reagan, is Trump doing Maggie Thatcher hairdo? You might not. You might be the only one. Well, no, everyone in here will know who Maggie Thatcher is. I don't think any of my friends would. Let's see. Kiki found the buffalo grow in Mexico. Dude, I didn't know that. I did not know that. That makes a lot of sense now. Kiki Camarena he grew up in the area I grew up in. Really? We learned his story in like 8th grade. I didn't really know about it till, man, till the advent of YouTube. I know that. Maybe History Channel mentioned him on one of those gang shows that were really popular in the early 2000s, but I didn't know about it till I was in my late teens, 20s. Let's see. What would happen during our reigns against the tribes? Did we take survivors as prisoners? If so, what did we do with them? Yeah, I mean, we would take them as prisoners. What happened during American or Spanish or Mexican raids against the tribes? They would take prisoners. They would take women and children. Generally, it depends what regiment, what company, what people took them prisoner. Sometimes they'd be treated nicely. Sometimes they'd be treated roughly. I don't see accounts of them being unalived or ritually, I think I can say abused. Um, but they could be treated very roughly. The Comanche that were, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess corralled, or the Comanche that were arrested in San Antonio after the Council House fight were basically just thrown into a big building with no roof on it. And when they wanted to feed them, they would just throw chunks of food like meat and whatever over the chunks of meat and bread over the wall and just throw them into this big crowd of Comanche men, women, and children. So, it's there was a lot of vitriol on both sides. So captives were a way to send a message a lot of times, but not all. There's no black and white on this stuff. Like not all Comanche captives were ritually punished, especially young children weren't. Um, and then same thing on the Texan side, young women and children generally weren't, but they did horrible things to full grown warriors that they captured, and there was post mortem mutilation, all kinds of stuff. The Rangers would take scalps for sure. Let's see. Dangerous, 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 folks. Just loose and unsupervised in here. Uh-oh, Nick Sweeney, you're the first comment I've read in a couple minutes. So I'm wondering what I'm going to read here next. DeSoto took hundreds at a time to use as burden carriers. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm talking Texans, I guess, specifically. I guess my only point there would be there wouldn't be ritual mistreatment of the women and children, but even that's a very general statement because there was plenty of it, just not, it wasn't de rigueur, I guess you could say, for their treatment. What would happen? Okay, got that. The Iron Lady. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Elite Super Grunt. I've read Oliver North and James Webb were regarded as two of the best military infantry platoon commanders in Vietnam. Both ended up famous in very different ways. Yeah, all I know is Oliver North was uh, well regarded as a uh, his service in Vietnam was well regarded, I guess we could say. I don't know. I'm trying to dance around him. He's not a super popular character. Old Iron Pants was hot. Who's Old Iron Pants again? USMC infantry platoon commanders, that is. Okay, I'm lost. Hold on. Where did I get lost here? I got to keep up with you guys. There's a lot of stuff pouring in here. What would happen during? Okay, I got that. What do you mean by Iron Lady Elite Super Grunt? I got. Okay, I'm working my way. We're almost caught up. My sister's husband worked in a facility that was owned by Rafael Caro Quintero, who owned the Buffalo Grove. Dude, really? That's wild. DeSoto took hundreds at a time. Okay, we got that. I dated a Navy nurse named Kiki when I was in the Navy, says Space Cowboy. She was a doll. She looked like Drew Barrymore back then. Nice. Oh, the Iron Lady is Maggie Thatcher, Terry R says. See, I didn't know that. That's the Americans don't know a ton about Maggie Thatcher. The Iron Lady. Okay. You learn something every day. I haven't seen a comment that needed moderation yet, although my mother did have a long, hairy back like Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady. Not a Thatcher fan, huh? I don't really know much about her, so. The Thatcher nickname was the Iron Lady. Okay, yeah, you guys are see, you're educating me. But she was a little before my time, so let's see. I know she's a contentious character in the UK. I think we're caught up. Oh, everybody's telling me she's known as the Iron Lady. Oh man, really showed my ignorance on that one, huh? First time for everything. Let's see. That's a generational thing. I knew who the Iron Lady was. Yeah, I didn't. That honestly, that is I was like thinking it was maybe an old West character that I wasn't familiar with. All I know about Maggie Thatcher is that she started the war over the Falkland Islands. Honestly, I did know that. And I'm not taking one side or the other. I don't know that she I didn't know I don't know if she did or didn't start it, but I know she was in charge when that happened. Let's see. Or maybe was in charge of that happening. Is that a better way to put it? Let's see. I think I'm caught up. Let's double check here. Yeah, the Iran Contra thing would be a good one for the conspiracy channel. And honestly, I used to not believe any of this stuff, but as things progress, you start to wonder. Armenian Bishop. Oh, I missed yours again. Let me see. Did I? I'm getting a bunch of them in here, so I'm sorry, Armenian Bishop. Did I? I don't see another Armenian Bishop. Uh, she was known as the Iron Lady. That's the last one that I see that you put in there. So sorry, I'm not trying to miss them. Uh, Iran Contra was arms for hostages. Arms were delivered and hostages withheld in Iran until election day. Okay. November of 1979. Oh, I did know that. Yeah, the election day, they released them right on election day. Bamadiana says, I've never heard of the Iron Lady. Okay, cool. I hadn't either. I wouldn't say she started the Falkland Islands War, but she sure as hell handled it well. Okay, that's why I try to stay relatively neutral on that because I just don't know enough about it. I know about the Falklands War, but I hesitate to take a side on anything that I'm not well informed on. She ended the war Argentina waged on a British protectorate. What is the general feeling about that in the UK, Surrender Monkey? I bet Terry R. You have him listed as Terrier here, but Terry R. knew all the Iron Ladies. Very suspicious. I can't confirm or deny that, but I can't deny that. You missed mine about George Custer. All right, sorry guys. I'm trying to find it here. There's a lot of them pouring in here, so bear with me. I hmm. I'm looking for the name Custer Artemio, but okay, I got that one. I again, like maybe are they getting lost? Because I'm not seeing one that you said on Custer Artemio. Can you hit me with it one more time? I feel like some of them are getting lost because I'll go check for the chat you're talking about, and then I don't see it in there. And usually I do. I know that this is not Comanche related, but are there stories of Texas captives like the girl with the blue tattoos, Olive Oatman? Yeah, I plan on doing a stream on her soon. It's her and her sister were taken by the Yavapai, who we did a little bit on in our what was the name of that? The Stagecoach Massacre. Oh, Wittenberg, I believe, massacre. That was probably 2 weeks ago, but they're one of the alleged perpetrators of that. But the Yavapai had kidnapped Olive Oatman and her sister, and then eventually the Mojave had found them, and a daughter of a Mojave chief, had kind of taken pity on Olive Oatman and her sister and said, like, listen, we got to trade for her. We got to get her out of this. And they traded some like tuber roots and baskets and blankets, I believe, for Olive and her sister. And then they became kind of integrated into the Mojave culture. They were both given these blue tattoos, which suggests they weren't in subservient roles. It suggests that they were adopted into the tribe. And Olive would, consider herself a part of the tribe, I believe, for the rest of her life. Her sister eventually passed away during a famine from starvation, which is really terrible. And eventually, very similar to Cynthia Ann Parker, Olive Oatman was found. She tried to hide herself several times from American discovery, I guess we could say. But eventually, she is discovered by the Americans and brought back into their society and is never really very happy about it. Long story short. But yeah, those tattoos in particular that she's famous for, those were voluntary, and it kind of negates these allegations of her being a Mojave captive. She was her and her sister were adopted members of the tribe. Custer was nearly captured in 1864 at the Battle of Trevilian Station. I didn't know that. I don't know a ton about his Civil War service other than he was made a brevet general. So I believe he was the youngest brevet general. Is that right? And he was a bad dude during the Civil War. Like he was getting after it. His brother, Tom Custer, won 2 Medals of Honor, I believe. So he wasn't getting after it as hard as his brother, in my humble opinion. Come on, 2 Medals of Honor. And then he got unalived at Little Bighorn. A bunch of the Custers did, right? The brother, I believe, a cousin, a nephew, a bunch of them, a bunch of the Custers. The channel Forgotten History has a really good episode about the Iran Contra scandal. I feel like maybe I've watched that. If I haven't, I will watch it though. I need a better grip on the ins and outs of the Iran Contra scandal. It's like I know that it happened, I know the consequences of it and the alleged consequences of it, but don't I only know enough to explain it very tacitly, very opaquely. I have real empathy for all the conscripts who paid for the BS. The I see, Surrender Monkey. You have real empathy for all the guys who um, were sent to the Falklands. He was the youngest general, says Happy Cappy, talking about Custer. And he was a brevet general, right? Meaning like a battlefield commendation, battlefield promotion, right? It wasn't after the war. After the war, to my understanding, like a brevet promotion was kind of sent back down. It was reset, I guess. I don't know if I have the right verbiage for that. If I had a handful of Terrier's memories, I'd be a nuisance in the chat. No way I could cope without a certain assists. I don't know what that means. That's scary talk, Nick Sweeney. Let's see. Custer's goal was to run for president. Yeah, he was almost Kennedy-esque. Like he had a plan to leverage that military career into a political career. He was super duper conscious of his image. The Maori call that the olive oatman tattoo. The Maori call a kaue'e. Is that right? I knew a guy with an authentic one. We helped him figure out they were for women, and he grew a beard. Oh, are they for women? I didn't know that. It would be the same process, though, that tapping process. That's what the Mojave would use. You have a very small needle, in their case, usually like a cactus needle, and you dip it in the ink, and it's on a little stick, and you tap the stick with a little mallet, and those little penetrations work like a tattoo gun. Let's see if it was Colonel Custer in the dining room doing the wrong kind of trifle. Oh, you're saying like a clue. He was a peacock, says Bamadiana. Yeah. Custer was a peacock. He used that hair. He used his image. He actually had cut his hair, I think, because it was hot, but he had cut his hair before Little Bighorn. So when the warriors discovered him, they knew who he was, and they were like, "Oh man," they were kind of bummed that he didn't have that scalp to take the full. Warriors wore their hair long as a taunt to their enemies to say like, "Come take this scalp," And they thought like, once we get the Custer scalp, everybody will know whose scalp that is, and they were kind of bummed, like, "Dang it." That was going to be my favorite scalp. It was Colonel. Okay, got that. He sure fluffed himself up, says Happy Cappy. Yeah, he knew what he was doing. He was playing an image up, but he wasn't stupid. Like the tactic that he'd used in other battles, I believe the Washita, he just barely avoided a similar situation. But the idea of circling back and running through the village, which is what they were attempting to do to break an attack, to like break the attacking warriors' forces on the rest of Custer's forces and kind of draw them back to the village. He had done that before to success. It wasn't an unheard of tactic. It just he was too far into it at this point. They made too many small tactical mistakes, and there were way too many Sioux and Cheyenne. They didn't realize how many of them there were, so they were just completely caught off guard. And Yeah, the only other thing, one other thing I'd like to say on that too is that I'd like to do a live stream covering Reno and Benteen and all these the subplots of the battle, I guess. But those really freak me out just as much as the Last Stand on the Hill, because it's like a lot of these guys. There's a lot of accounts of them like running away and literally screaming for their mothers, and just horrible accounts of these 18, 19, 20, 25-year-old guys clubbed down by the Lakota and the Cheyenne. Just a real, we think of it as kind of a, I don't know, almost satirical thing. Like it's just so, it's such a big event in American history. We kind of think, oh, Custer got his just desserts, basically. Like, oh, of course he got overrun there. But it's like, well, it wasn't a sure thing. And there were many more little subplots to that battle. And it wasn't just Custer. It was a lot of the guys. It was many, many, many young men that he led into a terrible situation. And they were, their last moments were utterly, utterly terrifying. It's a tragedy on both sides. Let's see. He was looking for glory instead of waiting for Marcus, Reno, or Benteen. Yeah, Marcus, that's the other name I forgot. But do you think Reno is, it's Reno, right? That was allegedly just soused. I think he was sipping on grandpa's cough medicine, but I don't know if he was soused. But he was given like contradictory orders. You like mount your horse, get off your horse, form a battle line, break the battle line in like 30-second increments. So all of his guys were like, what the hell, man? I have a squirrel tattoo on my backside, but it keeps running up. Bam, Deanna, you're gonna get us in trouble here. Bravado on steroids. Yeah, Custer. There was a lot of. He was trying to make a name for himself and leverage that into a political career. Certainly. Let's see. Marcus Reno didn't get along well. No, that's right. Reno didn't get along well with Custer, and he got really raked over the coals. I just can't figure out whether it's justifiably or not in his post-battle trials. Legal trials. Was it a court martial? I hated Custer and just, he hated Custer and just sat there waiting, says Reno did. Yeah, I've seen that allegation too. Benteen also didn't like Custer. Yeah, I don't think a lot of his subordinates liked him very much. Some blame Reno, right, right. Some say that he hesitated and was drunk and just wasn't able to make the right call at the right time. There was a lot of really bad decisions, a lot of misfortune, but just a perfect storm for just a complete massacre. Wait, if you haven't seen 1941, how about Little Big Man? That one could be 3 hours long. Is that Dustin Hoffman? I don't even know what Little Big Man's about. But in all honesty, who was at fault? In my opinion, ultimately Custer. He's the commander. It all kind of falls on his shoulders. But if Reno was getting drunk, then like he's got some fault on him. I would say the commanders, are the U.S. commanders, are at fault. Billy Bob Bry, what's up, man? Glad you made it. We did a good one tonight at the beginning, a fun one. Well, no, not a fun one. Interesting one and mildly horrifying one, but you'll enjoy it at the beginning of this stream. If you want to find a peacock, go read about General Miles. You know, I haven't read a lot about General Miles. Teddy Roosevelt literally said he was a proud peacock. Interesting. All right. I mean, I know who General Miles is, but I haven't really read much on his biography. Cool. I wrote that down. Space Cowboy. I was 14 or 15 when the Iran-Contra thing happened, but I remember siding with Oliver North. I think a lot of people did, even though I was too young and ignorant about politics to really understand it. There's a lot of that. I think I sided with a lot of people I had a lot of opinions after the Big 9 event, and I think a lot of those have evolved. A lot of people's opinions on that event have evolved as we've progressed from it. He was looking for glory instead of waiting for Marcus Reno or Benteen. Yeah, I thought that, and that still very well might be the case. I'm more and more convinced that he was making this charge to run through the village and just didn't realize how many Sioux and Cheyenne were there. But he'd done this tactic before. I think it was kind of a last desperate measure. It was a calculated measure in his mind. I don't think it was just a last ditch effort, and he knew it wasn't going to work. And it was his I don't think it was necessarily all for glory. I think it was an actual tactical move, but it was a very poor tactical move because you don't want to charge into a village and try to run through a village whose size you don't know. Like it was many, 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 many more warriors than they had first understood or first estimated there to be. And once, okay, got that. Tattoo with a machine I built. Arizona Boy says, I once gave myself a tattoo with a machine that I built. Never again. Can't even imagine it. Yeah, bro, that's rough. That's like prison style stuff. That's rough. Yeah, no more of that, Arizona Boy. That's not healthy. How were people assigned to Comanche war bands? Was there a specific criteria you had to meet? If so, how would one advance through the ranks? No, they were very, very laissez-faire, I guess you could say. It was not even, there weren't even really chiefs. It was just warriors, and you didn't even have to be an experienced warrior. If you were convincing enough and had a good idea, anybody could get to just put together a war party. It was just how many people could you convince to go? And they weren't assigned to specific bands. It was just like, do you want to go on this raid or not? And it was very ad hoc in a lot of ways. And other tribes had much more organized ways of putting that together. The Cheyennes, certainly, with different warrior societies, the dog soldiers, the Kit Fox soldiers, the elk soldiers. They would be they would volunteer for certain ones, or they'd have ones recommended to them based on their skill set and personality type. But the Comanche, in general, it's just like one dude saying like, I got an idea, we should go raid down to the ocean. And if he's convincing enough, everyone's gonna be like, cool, I'll go with him, because it's a personal endeavor too. Like it's a chance to up your status. The more raiding you can do, the more trophies you can harvest, the more goods you can bring back, the faster you ascend up the social ladder. So it wasn't hard to convince young men to go on a raiding party. But no, I'm not really like one chief who says, okay, on Thursday we're heading out. It's just dudes getting together. Let's see. Oh, I missed a couple. There's a couple more up here. The book is much better than the film. Little Big, you talking about Little Big Man? Little Big Man is dumb, says Bama Deanna. I think I remember talking to you about that before, where you weren't a big fan of him. I don't even know what is it about. I've just seen the cover, like Dustin Hoffman in a headdress. I find it funny how Sheridan, after hearing of his death, said, "Just poor." Uh, Sheridan said that he knew that would happen to Custer sooner or later. Yeah, he had a reputation even through the Civil War as just like, charge ahead first. And that was calculated. It was, I mean, it took a lot of bravery. We underestimate like how much bravery that guy had, and he should not have survived the Civil War. They thought he was checking out. They thought he was done for when they gave him the promotion to brevet general, but he survived. And uh, it took a lot of guts to do what he did, but that doesn't absolve you from responsibility as a battlefield commander. Could you please repeat tonight's main story, like in its entirety, Nick Sweeney? I could sum it up just for me. How were people just for me? Yeah, I mean, 40 guys on a survey party were out on a survey expedition in Central Texas in 1840, and they were attacked by a large band of Comanche warriors who had they should have known the Comanche were coming because they had a buffalo herd that the Comanche were chasing go right through their camp headed south. So that's pretty indicative the Comanche are chasing that buffalo herd, but nobody did anything. And a guy named One Eye Rogers, who was an old teamster, warned everybody and said, it's the Comanche. The Comanche are coming, but nobody listened to him. And they all had a nice dinner that night, like a fancy dinner, and went to sleep. And One Eye Rogers was right because they were woken up in the middle of the night with a bunch of Comanche arrows flying into the camp. Out of that 40, 38 of them were unalived. 2 guys escaped. One of them hid in a rattlesnake hole. The other one ran for his life, and they ended up at this settler's cabin somewhere between the Red River and San Antonio. It's hard to figure out where because of the sparseness of the record keeping then. And that was pretty much it. That's kind of where those guys' stories ended. I couldn't find anything on them after that, but pretty terrible. 38 out of 40 unalived. But go back and watch the beginning of the episode. It's a much more in-depth account. Let's see. Got that one. Okay. My grandfather was a very active Chicago Democrat who was very opinionated. He died in 2012. I wonder how he'd feel about his beloved party today. I don't know. I don't know. Custer's scout Bloody Knife told him it was a massive camp and Custer still went ahead. Yeah, like Bloody Knife did tell him, and then Bloody Knife didn't make it through the battle either. Right? No, Curly didn't. I forget if Bloody Knife did or didn't. But yeah, the scouts had seen it, and the scouts were trying to tell him, like, it's too big. And he was like, nah, it's fine. We got this. I also helped a friend build a tattoo gun. Oh man, you guys are wild out there. I don't have any tattoos. They'll hurt too much. They examined remains at Little Bighorn and found the teeth and jaws suffered from pipe smoking and tobacco chewing. Right. Yeah, and especially they were like these guys weren't even that old, but they were living hard lives. Like I believe they were able to tell they ate like a lot of hard food too. Right, the teeth were all worn down. There was a lot of arthritis in the skeletons, and it's like arthritis in guys that are early 20s, most of them. So they're living hard lives. The cavalry was a hard life. A lot of what? Let's see. Supposedly, he had a bone to pick with Sitting Bull and Gaul. Custer did. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Thank you for all your content. Frequent listener from down under in Australia. What's up, Paul Elliott? I don't know if we have. You might be our first Australian listener. Good to see you, man. What time is it there? Are you guys on GMT? Custer could have been sponsored by Red Bull. Same with Teddy Roosevelt. Same as George Washington. Same as a lot of them fellas. Yeah, true. They'd be. I would say uh, Teddy Roosevelt might be like more of a white monster guy. I've never had a white monster, but guys love those. Oh, nobody ever listens to old One Eye. No, I know. You got to listen to the guy with an eye patch. If a guy with an eye patch tells you something bad is going to happen, you need to listen to him. Custer rashly attacked at Trevilian Station and was surrounded. He was rescued by reinforcements. I think I did not write that down. Sorry, let me write that down. Trevilian Station. Cool. Let's see. Aussie, a fellow Commonwealther, says Will Money. What's up, Will Money? I didn't see you in there. Good to see you, man. He's our resident Canadian. Let's see. Was the One Eye guy a victim or did he leave? Asked Surrender Monkey. He was a victim. Poor guy. He was in a tough spot, man, because he couldn't just leave on his own, so he had to stick around. Nick Sweeney says Australia on GMT. SMH means shaking my head. I'm asking, man. I don't know what they're doing down in Australia. I want to be in the cavalry. Yeah, we talked about that Corb Lund song. Absolutely. Makes me want to enlist, says Space Cowboy. It doesn't make me want to enlist, but it's a good song. I'm not getting into the cavalry, man. Like you said, it's a hard life for those guys. Is it true that a lot of the soldiers hadn't even fired a gun? They'd done some rudimentary training, like they'd done some target practice, but no, not very much. Many of them were immigrants. Many of them the army was well known for just grabbing guys, not literally grabbing them and like shanghaiing them, but recruiting immigrants right off the boat. It was a way to make a living. It was a way to get a start for them. And especially right after the Civil War, just like after any major war, the Army's numbers were way down. The recruiting was way down. So they were taking anybody they could get. Go listen to the reprise of I Want to Be in the Cavalry too. I don't know. There's a different version of it. All Canadians are British and Australians and the Welsh and Scottish. And you get my point. You might be starting a fight there, Surrender Monkey. I don't know. I'm not agreeing with that. I want to see how the Australians and the Canadians feel about that before I agree with that. Jeb Stuart, a Confederate, was also a peacock. Yeah, he was a peacock. There's a lot of peacocking in the Civil War, though. It was a very peacock time. You wouldn't want to enlist after you heard the reprise. Okay. Oh, it's the second part. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to enlist after I heard one frontier warfare story. Washita, Rosebud. What else is there? Obviously, Little Bighorn. What's the one that happened in the wintertime? Can't believe I'm blanking on it. The one in the wintertime is probably my least favorite. Time is 12:30 p.m. viewing for me. Oh, what's up, Paul Elliott? So it is 12:30 p.m. for you? Where? What? Really? Oh yeah, sorry. I missed. Okay, I got it. Got it. It's 12:30 p.m. for you. Dang, that's way off. Yes, same guy. He does another version. Okay, yes, same. The Cord Blonde. He was at a party during Gettysburg. Jeb Stuart was really good day, Sarah Dolknife. He led the Indians on the Great Escape. That story should be incorporated into training for military and escape evasions. I'm not sure if it is or not. They do incorporate a fair number of those techniques and tactics that were developed on the frontier. We love Canadians, Australians, not so much the Welsh. Okay, I'm out of this, Surrender Monkey. I'm just telling you what Surrender Monkey says. That's not my opinion. That's not the official HOKC stance. No way you would have caught me out on the prairie back then, says Happy Cappy. Yeah, no, I'm not going to the prairie, man. I had kinfolk in the 1st Alabama Cavalry, says Bamadiana. They fought for the Union. Look up the Free State of Winston. There's a lot of free states, huh? Free State of Winston. Cool. Of Winston. Cool. Surrender Monkey, where do you think the Americans came from before you guys had your glorious rebellion? We both celebrate Christmas, friend. Oh boy. Oh boy. We're getting into it now. We're mixing it up in the chat. It's not just Terry R. and Nick Sweeney anymore. We have a multi-front conflict here. Jeb Stuart was named after his uncle. I like it, guys. Mix it up. Mix it up. I like it. Hands up. Protect yourself at all times. I'm British, says Surrender. I knew that. Does Will know that? Welsh gave us Lord of the Rings. They aren't bad. Ha ha ha. Fair enough. Yes, I'm a big Tolkien fan. He has fascinating history in the First World War. No, Stuart wasn't at any party at Gettysburg. That was Battle of Brandy Station. Okay. My Civil War history, you guys, I kind of avoid the Civil War just because there's so many experts that anytime I dip my toe into those waters, there's a million people correcting everything I say. So I like let the experts handle that because they are very, very specialized in the Civil War. Let's see. What's your view on that last 30 minutes Custer faced on the hill? It was horrifying. I think there was nothing, I don't want to say nothing noble about it. I think there's many guys that did noble things to try and save themselves and their friend, but no, like it would be an absolute horror movie, like just a complete horror movie. Nick Sweeney says, Surrender Monkey, you're busy making all kinds of no friends in chat. He's one to mind very carefully. Surrender Monkey's going for it. I like it. You're right, Bishop. I got a little confused. Okay, yeah. Armenian Bishop knows his stuff, man. The book Tories on the Hills has a story about a great uncle of mine. Tories on the Hills. Okay. Tories on the Hills. Lord of the Rings is Welsh. Thankfully, I've never read it, says Surrender Monkey. Surrender Monkey with the big shots. I like it. Landing big shots in the first round. Tories on, let me get that. On the Hills. Got it. Yeah, Jeb was further north raiding during Gettysburg, trying to get across the river and showed up late for the party known as Gettysburg. Okay, so he showed up late, but he didn't miss the battle. Of the Canadians, Australians, etc., the Irish are the most British of all. Oh, gosh, clock cutter. You're going to start a war, guys. We're going to start World War III right here. Crazy. It's crazy to think I'm at the genesis right now of World War III. I'm at the flashpoint. That's right. I got it wrong. It was James, not Joshua Stewart. Okay. Sitting Bull, Henry Tucker. Is Henry Tucker your relative, Bamadiana? Surrender Monkey is having his Custer moment right now, says Nick Sweeney. He is. He's going for it, man. He's charging for the village. Wasn't Stewart chastised by Lee at Gettysburg for not reporting back to him on time, says Terry R. What, if he was, yeah, let's see what the chat says. Now I'm learning from y'all because I stay in my lane with Civil War history. Lee considered Stewart as his eyes and ears. I thought he considered Stonewall Jackson as that. Maybe is this post Jackson's unaliving? Everyone's agreeing with Terry R. Okay. So let's repeat what he said again. Stewart was chastised by General Lee at Gettysburg for not reporting back to him on time. So he wasn't at a party during the battle, but he was a little late, like Nick Sweeney can sometimes be. Just joshing you. Stuart was unable to connect with Lee at Gettysburg because the army of Pontiac was in the way, says Armenian Bishop. Okay. So he wasn't late on purpose, he was held up. Custer moment, I'm good with all the trifles of life, says Surrender Monkey. That's a very British phrase, the trifles of life. I don't know if we're smooth enough for that here. I liked going around Britain, but what could you possibly have against the Welsh, says Hank Gunn. I don't know. I don't know, but it seems like there's a bone to pick there. Yeah, man, this chat room is ground zero for World War III, says Space Cowboy. It seems that way. It seems that way. I'm going to be the Gavillo Princip of World War III. Yes, Henry Tucker is my relative who was T-worded and skinned alive and much more at the Confederate Home Guard. By the Confederate Home Guard? Like by the Confederates? Wow. No, Bishop. Jeb was north and the Union was coming from the south. So, Pennsylvania Plowboy, you're saying that Jeb was not cut off from the battle by any Union forces. He was just late. Let's see. Stewart was unavoidably blocked from joining Lee at Gettysburg. So, not his fault. It's just he's cut off by the Union Army. That was below my waterline, says Nick Sweeney. It's a joke, bro. It's a joke. You're usually on time. Most of the time. Let's see. Stewart was also getting supply wagons, if I'm correct. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons. Was there ever any kind of reconciliation between Lee and Stewart? Let's see. Do you know a lot about General Cleburne? I do not. I know he was from Ireland. A lot of Irish, especially during that time. Lee was very disappointed in Stewart, which is as bad as it gets. Yeah, Lee was a exacting figure. He was beloved by his men, but I mean, he was, I believe, the number one student in his class at West Point. I don't think he got a single demerit in 4 years, which is nuts. A friend of mine went to West Point, and he was saying like, "That's crazy, dude." He's like, "How do you not do that?" Armenian Bishop. That's right. Stewart was slowed down by captured wagons. Those wagons were used to transport Confederate wounded back to Virginia. Yeah, see, there's a lot to keep track of here. Patrick Cleburne is an underrated Confederate major general. Okay. Cleburne. You guys can see why I kind of err more towards pre and post Civil War stuff, though. Cleburne. Okay. Let's see here. Though a YouTube chat without drama is like Lee Marvin without whiskey. Fair. Yeah, that wouldn't make a very good paint your wagon. No, Lee and Stewart were close friends until Stewart passed away. Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. Because Lee wasn't, he was an exacting guy, but I mean, I don't know. Everybody that served under him seemed to like him. Not an unreasonable guy, I think we could say. In my opinion, he is better than Stonewall. Really? Wow. How long was the minimal water situation in play during the fight? Which fight? Paul Elliott. It could get contentious, says Arizona Boy. In the chat? Yeah. We're known to get after it here. Let's see. A lot of Civil War knowledge. Oh, you guys impressed me. Terry R says, Stewart knew he went too far out and was very hurt and embarrassed. Okay. So Lee didn't care about the wagons. He needed to know about the enemy. Okay. That makes sense. He went a little too far from the home base and he was very embarrassed by that. And Lee didn't care about the wagons. He wanted to know, well, where is the enemy? James Watt spent his time. Good point, Terry R. I mean, good contribution. Terry R knows his stuff. James Watt spent his steam engine money on lands in Wales, and his descendants still live there. Really? Custer's last stand. How long was the minimal water situation during the fight? That's a good question. I know there was a water situation, but I don't know for sure how long it lasted. Stonewall had very bad times in battle. Like one, he never informed AP Hill during a battle, and both disagreed a lot. I know Stonewall was a intense dude. Let's say intense. Lee graduated at the top of his class. He was a master battle tactician. It is said he had a heart attack before Gettysburg. I didn't know about the heart attack. I knew about him graduating at the top of his class, though. And he had a military tradition in his family going back to the Revolutionary War, didn't he? AP Hill had better battles than Stonewall. Interesting. Interesting. I've just always heard of Stonewall as such a revered character, but maybe there's a little bit of that he passed away just in time to be a legend thing. Lee was also a hero in Goliad. He very well might have been. He was during the Mexican-American War. He and Grant both were out there um, getting down, I guess. Let's say we're out there. I don't know if that's the best term for. No. Let's rephrase that. He and Grant were both prominent figures in the Mexican American War. I think Jackson was too. Many officers who were prominent in the Civil War got their start in the Mexican American War. Remember that guy Spencer Rapone who graduated from West Point in 2018? I don't. Grant and Lee broke back too. Sorry, Hank Gunn. Sometimes, I mean, you talk this much, it's like you're gonna slip up and say something that sounds a little off. That's funny though. I forget the name of the commander under Lee at the battle. Yeah, that's funny, Hank Gunn. I forgot the name of the commander under Lee at the Battle of Gettysburg, but basically he disobeyed orders, and that is theorized why Lee would have won the battle. So there's a subordinate to Lee who disobeyed orders. I kind of guys, I should know this, but there's only so much room in the old noggin, you know. Just because I'm a D word about well-known tropes doesn't mean I harbor any hate or malice against anyone. I do take the piss a lot, says Surrender Monkey. That's what you're here for, man. That's what you're here for. We like to mix it up in here. Lee served under Winfield Scott in the Mexican-American War, correct? Yeah. I believe they both did. I think you're talking about Longstreet, Arizona. You're talking. So Longstreet was a subordinate to Lee who failed to follow orders. I didn't see the Space Cowboy Traders. Let's see. Oh, we got these chats are rolling in, guys. And he was wearing the guy from West Point was wearing a Che Guevara shirt under his. I don't remember that, but that's back in 2018. I probably am not going to remember it because there's a lot that's happened since then. It caused Lee to lose the battle. Basically, he was a cavalry commander. Okay, Pickett's charge should never have happened. That's the first thing I think of when I think of that battle. It's like that should not have happened. What was that? Longstreet was known as Lee's warhorse. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of Longstreet before. Okay. Spencer Rapone. I remember his name because I hate communism that much. So that's the West Point guy. Yeah, a lot of news stories just kind of have melded all together in my brain after this many years. Pickett's charge was a slaughter. Absolutely. Inexcusable. Oh, you're talking about Stewart? Okay. A lot has happened since 1969. Yeah, I'd say a lot has happened since November of 1963. Did you know Arlington Cemetery was Robert E. Lee's personal estate before the war? I did know that. I didn't know enough to bring it up on my own, but yes, I did. Lee donated it. Mine too, brother. I've got a few years on you. Hey, I think anybody's brain is about melted after the last 10, 15 years of the news, huh? Ever hear the story of when Lee's horse Traveler spooked and took off, dragging him on a dead run during a battle? I think actually that does spark something in my memory. I think that was mentioned in a Ken Burns series, but I don't. That's kind of all I remember about it. Yeah, I just remembered he flanked the Yanks. Instead of sticking to the plan Lee set out, he did his own thing and gave up the high ground, and that's basically what cost them Gettysburg. Then that cemetery was on purpose, I think. Yeah, he donated it though, right? Maybe for a tax write-off. I don't know. Stuart's cavalry tried to attack into the rear at Gettysburg. Custer stopped the Confederates there. Oh, so Custer stopped Stuart? It was given to Lee and his wife by her grandmother. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Lee's wife's grandmother, right, was Martha Washington. So, like, his family tree is connected to George Washington. He couldn't live at his house because Grant buried bodies right up to the doorstep. Is that true? Is that what happened? I thought he like donated it. but they just started burying people on his land. Second Battle of Bull Run, 1862, according to the internet. What are we talking about there? Oh, that's when Lee was dragged by his horse. Okay, so early in the war. Okay, Arizona boy. Oh, you say okay. Uh, Gosh, I'm mixing the names up now. But you're saying, yeah, that's why he lost the battle. I'm out. Love the channel. Have a good one. You too, Hank Gunn. We're gonna wrap it up here in 5-10 minutes. So, gosh, we're already on 2 hours. That's crazy. It's awesome. Time flies when you there's a I say time flies when you're drunk when you're having fun, right? But there's a cartoon quote that says, "Time flies when you're drunk as hell," and it's like I like that quote better. Is Empire of the Summer Moon surpassed by any other books on the Comanche? Empire of the Summer Moon is a great starting point. If you want a really in-depth study of the Comanche, I'm going to post a link to it. I'll pin it in the chat so everybody can get it. It's by Pekka. I've mispronounced this name infinite times. Pekka Hamalainen. Hamalainen. Okay, that's the best I'm going to get. But an absolutely fascinating, um, absolutely top tier research work here. Probably the best in depth um, study of the Comanche that I have read yet. I don't know how anybody could do much better because it's just so rich with detail from the Rocky Mountains of the first beginnings, the first iterations of the Comanche, all the way until the 1900s. He does a great job covering every little detail. Does a really good job of breaking down the sub bands, even in more detail than we did in the live stream because we got to break down the basics. But he goes into super duper detail about every sub band. Um, Famous warriors, cultural practices. Like they had some cultural practices, like they had some manner of traditions that they would do yearly, annually, monthly, stuff like that. She breaks that down. She breaks down their dress, their diet, in a lot more detail than SC Gwynn even really has room to do in his book. Like he has to tell a story. He has to get some basics across, and he does a great job at that. But if you're interested after that and you want a lot more detail on the Comanche, specifically this book that's pinned at the top there, it's called Comanche Empire by Pekka Hamalainen and Pekka Hamalainen. There we go. Great book. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. 9 Years Among the Indians, Herman Lehman's story. Great book. Yeah, for sure. That's anything that's a firsthand account. Nelson Lee as well. But if you want just a structural, historical, cultural breakdown of the tribe, Pekka's book, Comanche Empire, is the best that I've seen. I read that book by Pekka. Think they do one on the Lakota too. Did he do one on the Lakota? Very cool. I'll have to check that out. Let's see. Getting caught up here. This bunch just flooded in here. Lee lost Arlington because he didn't pay his taxes during the war, says Armenian Bishop. Armenian Bishop, I knew there was a tax angle to it. I knew it. I was like, there has to be a tax angle here. Come on. I was born at night, but not last night. I'm butchering the story. Okay, got that. Ken Burns' new documentary about the Revolutionary War is getting thrashed by actual historians. I haven't seen it, but I was a little sus with the interviews I was seeing. And I don't even know what I mean by that. Like, I'm not ripping it because it takes a political bent one way or the other or whatever. I just didn't get good vibes from Ken during the interviews for this documentary. I'm going to check it out, but if it's getting thrashed by historians, I want to go see what they're saying too. And I'm not terribly surprised, I'm sad to say, because most of his work I've been a fan of, like his Civil War stuff for sure, but his Prohibition one, The West is one that's really underrated. He did in the mid or early 90s, and his baseball one. His baseball one's really good too. Let's see. Martha Washington was the great grandmother of Lee's wife, right? Allegedly, I'm related to Robert Lee, but I haven't confirmed it yet. Very cool. He gets such a bad rap, and it's like, we get it. Like, yeah, slavery, not good. Confederacy, objectionable on moral grounds, depending on who you are, depending on, in general, like people that think the Confederacy is not great. Okay, we get it. But Lee was the best commander that America had at that time. The Confederacy was wildly undermanned and wildly underfunded, but Lee, I think anyone worth their salt will tell you that's the best military commander, and maybe in the whole 19th century, maybe in all of American history, but he was the best in America at that time. Let's see. Anyone know why George Washington didn't have children? I do not. I do not know. There's a lot of speculation around that. And I'm a Washington fan, man. But it might just be for it just didn't happen. Let's see. Oh, we have a $10 super chat. Wow. Surrender Monkey, what's up? Thank you so much, man. Why is YMCA the only tribe Trump knows? Well, I don't know if that's not the only tribe he knows. It kind of is maybe the only dance he knows. And it's a good song, dude. YMCA is a vibe. Like I get it. I'm not going to the same YMCA, right? Okay. Like I get what the song's about. I'm not saying that, but it's a vibe. It's a good song. And when I was a security guy at the club downtown during South by Southwest, like the big music festival in Austin, I walked the whole village people to the stage, and the chief guy, he was the original guy. He was so nice. He was such a cool guy. They all had all their stuff on. They came from the hotel with all their stuff on. They were super unassuming, super polite, put on a great show, like super sharp choreography, great band. So I've been like, I've always thought the village people were cool, but I was like, these guys are really, really nice guys. And not everybody you run into in the music industry is nice, believe it or not. But thank you, Surrender Monkey, man. That's really nice of you. According to Ken Burns, Washington would be really? Really? Ken Burns said that? I mean, I don't know. I would think not, though. Like the Seinfeld episode, like not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, I don't think so. Yes, Space Cowboy, but did you get a load of those? I'm not sure what we're saying there. Oh, a bunch of chats just flood in here. Nick Sweeney says omission, obfuscation, half-ass, and I think he's coming for me again. Maybe he's talking to Terry R. Nick Sweeney just taking shots, haymakers left and right. Ken Burns docs have always been amazing, but lately he has gone down the Hollywood revisionist path. Yeah, that's just and that's what I've heard. Okay, I don't want to full out agree with that. That's what I've heard though, and it's like that sucks, dude. That really sucks. He was a really reliable historian or uh, purveyor of historic information for a long time. Burns would have fled to Canada for sure. Maybe. Let's see. They do not consider Lee a great commander because the Confederates called him Granny Lee. Well, they called him that because he was old. No, I don't think I could be wrong on that, but in general, I've heard like that guy was the best. Union controlled the Western rivers, which helped them win the West. Yeah, they had like more money, more industry to work with. Though I forget, was it France that was thinking about funding the Confederacy, or maybe the UK? Or I guess it'd be Britain at that time. They did call him Granny Lee, though. Yeah, I just thought it was because he's old. Because this is 30 years after the Mexican-American War. Right? No, this is 15 years after it. Have you seen where Mikey Gillies' bar was? Well, you mean Mickey Gillies in like around Houston? I've never been to Gillies. He did win, but to George McClellan, and Lee lost half of his army by the time the war ended. I'm not sure what that means, and that's my fault. I'm not reading it correctly. Oh, you're talking about Ken Burns and not me, says Nick Sweeney. Okay, that's nice. I thought you were just coming right for me again, and I was ready for it. Let's see. If you think about he was more of a butcher than Grant, okay, fair enough. Let me look some more into it, Artemio. I mean, like, yeah, Pickett's charge happened on his watch, didn't it? He retreated a lot, if I'm correct. If we're talking about Lee, I mean, but so did Washington, right? And I'm not trying to argue you or push my point about Lee across, because I'm down to go look more into that. But I'm just saying, Washington was famous for that, so it doesn't mean you're a bad general, right? To my understanding. Empire of the Summer Moon audiobook is free on YouTube. I don't know if I get in trouble for promoting that, but I can read Bama Deanna's comment that says that. Um, let's see. I wanted to add that Lee never owned unpaid human labor, I think I have to say, and didn't care much for the practice. His wife owned unpaid human labor because she inherited them. He fought for Virginia. That's true. He fought for Virginia for sure. I know that to be true that he fought for Virginia because he felt more loyalty to the actual place. It wasn't a defense of the unpaid human labor industry, which is hard for us to kind of understand today. But I mean that's true in a lot of cases. They still view it now as the War of Northern Aggression. There was a Shelby Foote talks about a Southerner being taken prisoner, and that's just a normal Confederate soldier. And they said, "Well, why are you fighting? Like, why are you doing this?" And he said, "Well, because you're down here." So it's like, yeah, the percentage of slave ownership is or unpaid human labor ownership is comparatively low to what most people think, and that's not to excuse the practice or trivialize the practice, but it is to say that to have a holistic understanding of this, like we try to with all of our subjects, it is important to realize and recognize that fact. Everyone defeated McClellan. He wouldn't fight, says Terry R. That's my understanding of McClellan. Yeah. He's replaced by Grant, right? I think they even said, like, look, Grant might be like 3 sheets to the wind, but we need this guy. There's a good channel called The White House. I've never heard of that. The White House. Okay. A good history channel called The White House. Never seen that. Got to ask about General Granberry while we're talking Civil War. I don't know anything about General Granberry. Is that who Granberry is named after? Lee did own unpaid human labor, but he was lazy and didn't take care of them. But he did own them, says Artemio Moreno. That's why I tread lightly around that. Like, I'm not sure on that myself yet, so I don't want to say yay or nay. Granberry was unalive in the charge at Franklin in 1864. Okay. And is that who they named Granbury, Texas for? He fought for Virginia back when they were still under these United States. Virginia's still in the United States, right? Oh, Virginia's a collection of counties. Yeah, I could see that. I kind of like McClellan, says Armenian Bishop. They weren't under his name, but his wife's name. Oh, the unpaid human labor, which is, it feels like a more disrespectful term than just saying, but no, McClellan's only opponent was Lee. Oh, so yeah, I know he wasn't in competition with Grant, but once they decided to fire McClellan, didn't they just say, okay, Grant is next? I think we ran through a couple of Union generals, though, right? Bamadiana says his wife was technically the owner of the unpaid human labor. Also, the majority of America, quote unquote, says Surrender Monkey, was just east at the time of the War of Independence and Civil War. Not many people consider that. It's just the east of America. Yeah, mostly east of Mississippi. Not exclusively. There was a fair amount of combat west of the Mississippi, but generally, yes. After Artemio Moreno says after McClellan, it was Burnside. Okay. Then Joe Hooker, then General Meade, and Grant became Lieutenant General and commander of all armies. Grant never commanded the Army of the Potomac. Okay. All right. See, I like this because it's like I can admit that, like, that's not my forte, and then you guys can tell me stuff. After McClellan, Burnside took command. I did know that it wasn't McClellan, or I thought I didn't know, but I was thinking after we got to talking about it that it wasn't McClellan to Grant. There was a bunch of guys they tried. McClellan wouldn't chase Lee down though. Yeah, didn't he kind of like hunker down? I mean, like more or less. I'm talking generally here, but the Union didn't really have many good commanders. They just had the industry of the North and much more manpower to slog out the war. That's kind of my understanding, quickly summarized. Is there's just way more guys fighting for the Union and they just have way more resources. These United States meant something, not 50 big counties beholding to DC it devolved into. Yeah, it's a little different now, maybe. Can't beat people with knowledge and passion. Well, depends on how much knowledge and how much passion they got. We actually get sideburns from Burnside. I like that. Yeah, yeah. And we get the term for ladies of the night from General Hooker, right? One of the terms, but if I'm not mistaken. because he was trying to show his boys a good time, right? We get side. Okay, we got that. All right, guys, we'll go another 5 minutes and we'll start wrapping it up here. Oof, yeah, says Happy Cappy. I was right about that, right? That's where the term comes from. Imagine that being your legacy. Like, hey, you know who they named that after? My grandpa. Believe it or not, France had planned on helping the South. Okay, that's what I was thinking. It was France or Britain, but I couldn't remember who. It's France. But they got bogged down and defeated by the Mexican army. Oh yeah, that's during oh, the prince from Austria. Is that when he came over here? Came over to Mexico. Oh, what's his name? Really sad figure who was ultimately unalived by the state. Believe it or not, France. Okay, got that. McClellan would build an army. He just couldn't command it. Oh, I'm sorry. Terry R says McClellan could build an army. He just couldn't command it in a real battle. Yeah, I guess you got to have both sides of that coin if you're going to be an effective general. The soldiers love McClellan and Joe Johnston. For that reason, I like both of them, says Armenian Bishop. You know, that really does color my view of commanders too, is whether their troops like them. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Arizona boy. Maximilian. Yeah, the Emperor Maximilian. It was brought over from Austria, right? Which was a common thing in Europe. They brought in like uh, Germans, effectively, Georgians, not Germans, Georgians to run the British crown, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, Maximilian, who came over, basically tried to do a good job, didn't do a great job, tried really hard, and then they unalived him. That's a quick summary. I'm just saying. I'm leaving a lot of detail out there, but quick summary. Um, Artemio Moreno. So you're saying it didn't come from General Hooker. It came from a New York or from a neighborhood called Corlier's Hook in New York City. That's the first I've heard of that. Even Burns's documentary said, "Oh, that's where the name came from." So that's news. That's news to me. France brought Mexico's 6 de Mayo. They don't talk much about that. I don't know about 6 de Mayo. 6 de Mayo. I really don't know a ton about Cinco de Mayo either. The real Mexican Independence Day is what, September 13th? Is that right? Something like that. The last Canelo fight was on Mexican Independence Day. What a fight. Bud Crawford really made a statement, you guys. Number one pound for pound. I'm serious. Look it up. They were defeated really bad in 1864. We're talking to Surrender Monkey there. Hey, the Brits also kicked the F out of France, but yeah, Mexico did it. So we got some contention there. We're saying the Brits should get more credit for the Mexican Revolution, I believe. I'm serious. Look it up. They were defeated really bad in 1864. It stopped all plans about helping the South. It stopped all French plans about helping the South, because that was a real possibility for a while. My dad was born on Cinco de Mayo, says Artemio. That's a good birthday. Easy to remember. Brandon, that movie Cinco de Mayo, La Batalla is based off of that. That is on the list. I have that on the movie list. I know I have that on the movie list. I remember typing that out. Only 5 more minutes, man. If I had 5 more minutes left to live, I only have one last thing to say. I would say, what are we going to see here? Yeah, I don't mean it like, it's 2:15 and it's like I do have to get these film segments done and I'm getting this episode done for Friday. So I figure I gotta drag myself back to work at some point. Let's see. I guess this counts as work, but this is fun for me. Have you ever read about have you ever read about have you ever read about Canada's involvement in the American Civil War? Canada helped the Confederacy a huge amount. No, dude, I have not at all. I will. I did not realize that. I thought they were helping the Union out more because I know escaped slaves whatever, you know what I mean, would go up north to escape American territory. Canada in that's news to me, man. I did not know that at all. Very interesting. Let's see. What's the last thing you were going to say? If you had 5 minutes left to live, what were you going to say, Space Cowboy? I feel like it's going to be something wild. Funny thing for those born on February 29th. That's got to be rough, born on February 29th. Let's see. Never heard that, says Bama. Yeah, I didn't know that about Canada's involvement. Terry R says, my dad's old girlfriend was General Hooker's great granddaughter who is still living in his house in Sonoma, California. So the old man's out literally picking up hookers, huh? We could say that because it's the actual guy's name or the lady's name in this case, but I'm saying the name. You know what I mean? Everybody, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Watch the movie. Yeah, I think we can make it a movie night thing, Arizona. Christ is Lord, and I give up the ghost. Space Cowboy out. Right on. Fully agreed, Space Cowboy. Good to see you, man. And fully agreed. We're at 2:15 now. All right. Anybody have anything else you want to toss in before we sign off for the night? And remember, we will have. Oh, I gotta do a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I'll let you know. Because that might take a while. So I'll let you know in the afternoon if I'll be able to get the stream up. If I'll be back home to do a live stream tomorrow night. I won't be able to tomorrow because I got to leave early in the morning. But tomorrow night, I'm going to try and get one up. And if nothing else, we will have right back on normal schedule Wednesday. So coffee talk, probably an episode release on that night. And then normal schedule all the way through the week. We'll have 2 or 3 episodes out. We have shorts all the way through, 2 or 3 shorts a day. After tomorrow, we'll be right back on our regular coffee talk schedule. I'll let you guys know in the morning what's going on when I have all the travel schedule stuff ironed out. Let's see. Cinco de Mayo was a battle that France lost to the state of Puebla. I didn't know that. Nope. Money. Jefferson Davis came to Canada and was applauded by a massive crowd. I did not know that, dude. That's fascinating. I'm going to look at that once I get done with filming tonight. I'm going to say, God bless America. Absolutely. Confederates organized a raid into Vermont from Canada. Dude, really? I did not know this. That's fascinating. Probably going to say, what is Surrender Monkey? The Brits stopped people's heads falling off. Nobody thinks of that blooming French propaganda. Yeah, those French, man. Well, I guess we wouldn't have won the revolution here without the French. So we got a little love for the French. Probably going to say, you're saying Surrender Monkey is probably going to say down with Wales and the Welsh. I wouldn't be surprised if he said that. That's not my position, but I wouldn't be surprised if Surrender Monkey said that. Let's see. I'm trying to get to all these guys. There's a bunch flowing in here. I canceled my doctor appointment this morning so I wouldn't miss the live. Oh, don't do that, Bama Deanna. I'm glad we had you this morning, but make sure you go to your necessary appointments. I got to go to this one. Let's see. We're glad to have you, though. I'm just saying, make sure you're taking care of yourself. I think he got that horse in the Jefferson Davis plantation. There was a Union general named Jefferson C. Davis. Well, I'm getting confused now. I got to go look this stuff up. I didn't know anything about Canada's involvement. Just kidding. I canceled it because I didn't want to go. Okay. Well, as long as you just didn't want to go. But even then, make sure you're taking care of yourself. I get it, though. It's a tedious process. I know. That's what I'm going to deal with tomorrow. But that's all right. Got to do it. No problem. And we're definitely going to try and get the stream up. I don't want to say like we're going to do it for sure and then not be able to follow through for tomorrow. But we're going to try to get the stream up tomorrow as long as everything goes to plan. Regular time for tomorrow's stream. So that'd be 7. Sorry, that's 7 p.m. for me. I'm going to get this right one of these days, guys. It'll be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'll post about it tomorrow when I know for sure that we'll be able to do it. But after that, Wednesday on, it'll be coffee chats, regular live streams, episodes, shorts, all that good stuff. We'll have 2 or 3 shorts out tomorrow too, so keep an eye out for those. If you haven't seen our last episode, be sure to go check that out. We got several live streams up that are on interesting stuff. I think they're cool stuff. So if you haven't seen the live streams, go check those out. And yeah, thank you all for coming. We love to see this chat grow. Love to see everybody building a little community here. You all are just a ton of fun to hang out with, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you very much. And yeah, stay tuned. Lots of big stuff coming, and we will see you tomorrow. God bless and have a good night. Oh, wait, sorry. Just when I was about to click, I literally was about to click end stream. Terry R with a $20 super chat. Oh, thank you so much. Truly, that makes this possible. Calling it a night, paying for Mr. Sweeney's fines. Yeah, they're wiped clean now. They're wiped clean. Thank you very much, Terry R. That is very kind of you. Thank you. No DC for this old boy. Somewhere historic, says Space Cowboy. Very fun and informative, says Surrender Monkey. Turkey, Texas. I know where that's at. Evan Justice Evan says, peace. Later, y'all. Says Arizona boy. Thank y'all again. Thank y'all very much. We'll see you soon. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Like I said, God bless. We'll see you.